everybody. I just wanted to express my appreciation for y'all inviting us up. And it's my first time in Canada. And my wife Jan and I came up on Monday in Toronto, and we actually drove down to Niagara Falls. And I'd never seen that before, so that was a really nice couple of days down in the weather. And the autumn colors up here are just splendid. It's just wonderful. So that was a real treat. Another thing about the hospitality of the Canadian people, it's just been phenomenal. Y'all are a friendly bunch. That's kind of welcome. You know, people say hi and bye and speak to you. It's pretty cool. We're from Central Missouri. We're in the Midwest, and I'm going to give you some pictures and talks today about what we're doing here in the Midwest of Missouri. And basically, we were doing everything wrong, folks. I was, in 1999, I came very close to going bankrupt. We bought the farm, or the bank did. I went and borrowed the money to buy the livestock, the machinery, and didn't really focus on what was important. And what was important was the forage, the grass. You're going to hear a lot about grass today. So I changed my attitude, and I read one sentence that changed my whole life. And it was, your sole purpose in life should not be to own the land, but to control the land. And that one sentence made a lot of sense to me. When I started looking around the country where I lived, there was all this land around me. There wasn't anybody doing anything with it. It was idle. Didn't have any food. Didn't have any water. It was run down. It had been hay to death. People just took the hay off until it didn't put out hay anymore. And that's what we started with. And using livestock and good grazing management, we turned these farms around. We started out in 1999 with one farm, built that up to 2001. We had about 7, and today we've got 15. Now, of those 15, we own 3 of those farms now. The whole thing that makes this work, though, is we don't own any equipment. No equipment other than a 4-wheeler. We do have an ATV. We don't own a tractor. We don't have any brush hog. I tell people we've got 300 brush hogs, but they run on 4 legs. Okay? So, in 2006, I was introduced to Ian Mitchell Ennis. Ian Mitchell Ennis was a South African landowner, mob grazer in South Africa. And he was doing this thing called mob grazing. And he went one step further. He said, we shouldn't call ourselves grass farmers. And that kind of took me back a little bit. That's what I was calling myself, as a grass farmer. He said, we should call ourselves microbe farmers. Microbe farmers. In other words, what's going on down in the soil? The soil, it all starts in the soil. It's the bugs. It's the fungi, the bacteria, the nematodes. It's all these little critters that we can't see. The problem is we don't manage for them. And so we don't have very many down there. And then we wonder why our pastures suffer. We don't get the forage production. Our cattle don't do as well, or our sheep, or whatever. It's because our pastures are not alive. We're going to cover how to make our pastures alive again. We got to get the soil alive. So we're going to feed it. We're going to trample. We're really focusing on trying to feed the soil every day that we can. Now, folks, what I'm going to talk about today is, we're doing this in Central Missouri. There's bits and pieces of this. I want you all to think about what can I take home from this talk and try some of this on my farm here in Ontario. I'm not going to say you can do every single thing that I'm doing in Missouri. That'd be silly of me to do that. But there are bits and pieces of this, the strategy, the thoughts of being able to keep our ground covered all the time with organic material so we can feed the soil bugs while feeding the livestock above the soil, building healthy root systems. Doesn't matter where you live, that should be a focus on your farm. Okay? First of all, we got to have the microbe tank. Okay? We got to have that. We don't have a big gut on our livestock, and I've heard people say that genetics don't matter. Well, yeah, I think I'd have to argue a little bit about that because I did custom grazing for many years. That's how I got out of debt. We custom grazed other people's cows for 7 years. We got paid so much a month per cow for running those cattle. And so we didn't have any debt. We got a paycheck in the mailbox every month for running those cows. And it's a great way, I think, for young people to get started that don't have any equity and want to build some equity. What better way than to use other people's land and other people's cattle? That's why I wrote my first book called No Risk Ranching. Custom grazing on leased land. Didn't have any overhead, didn't own anything. All I had was my management services. And you can build that as big and as fast as you want, depending on what's in your heart. And the better at it you are, the more land you will get. We just got 2 more farms this year. Just got 2 more farms. One of them was free. Free, 100 acres. Got it. We're not paying him anything. We're saving him $800 a year brush hogging though. He was brush hogging it every year. It cost him $800 in diesel fuel, and now we're mowing it with log. We were just in there last week, and the guy was, he's a judge at the local town. And I sent him pictures. He was in a murder trial. And I emailed him a picture on my iPhone of the cows on his farm. He inherited his farm from his dad. His dad just passed away last year. And he responded immediately. He says, "Greg, you made my day. I only wish my dad was alive to see this." You know, that's pretty special. I mean, that's kind of heartstrings. That hits some heartstrings for me. And he said, "When can you come back?" I'm like, "When it's recovered. When it's recovered." This farm hadn't had cattle on for 56 years. Over half a century. But we took a bunch of those, and you want to see it. It's beautiful. So what we're doing is we're giving our cows this smorgasbord. We're feeding the soil and making sure our cows don't eat all this. And we're trampling that on the ground, keeping the soil covered, feeding the soil life, and feeding the animals. Now, a lot of people look at that picture, folks, and like, well, Greg kind of messed that up, didn't he? Don't y'all see seed heads on there? We're all taught to keep the seed heads off in Missouri. Because of that almighty seed head, you know, your cows will die if they eat a seed head. What is seed, folks? It's energy. It's grain. It's energy. Why do cows always slip off when the seed heads come out? So there's a lot of energy in it. If we look at the transportation mechanism, the sunlight, that's what we're doing. We're harvesting sunlight through the leaves all over our farm. And the more leaves that you can grow on your farm, the more sunlight you're going to harvest, and the more lamb, beef, goat, whatever that you're going to produce on your farm. Folks, this all comes down to profit. That dirty word, profit. If we aren't making any money on the land, I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to stay on the land. We got to make some money out here, folks. And the way to do that is to use the grass. So that's what we're doing. We're taking the tips. We're taking just the tips off of those leaves with the cow cones. That's where the energy is the highest. So we're getting maximum recovery. The plants are exploding back after getting grazed. And our cows are getting fat as pigs. That's what we want. That's what it looks like down in the canopy. Looks like a jungle down in there. That's what you want. You want a jungle of grass. Folks, we got to keep the sunlight off the soil. Did y'all know that about, it's like 97, 98% of all soil life is in the top 3 inches? And if that top 3 inches sees sunlight all day long and gets warm and hot and dries out, you're not going to have any soil life looking for you. It's going to go down or it's going to get killed. The worms, they've got to go down because they're going to dry out. So let's keep the soil covered with sun. And how about when we get a rain and we're in a drought? You haven't had a rain for a long time. If we can keep our soils covered, we can make it through these droughting periods as well. It's pretty exciting stuff. So there we are. We have solar-powered soil builders. Powered by sunlight. This is winter. That's early winter. That would be probably December. We get snow. We don't get the snow that you all get up in Canada. You know, last year we had 24 inches on for a while. We thought that was a lot of snow. Now up here, I probably don't think that's a lot of snow. What we found out is the cattle do pretty good on this stockpile that we can grow there in Missouri. It's a fescue base. Yeah, it turns brown. But right down at the very bottom of that grass that cow's grazing, there's just a little tinge of green in there. Little tinge of green. And it's been frozen many times. I mean, it's been probably down to 0 or below numerous nights, but it's still got good feed value. And those cows are still fat. And they've got calves on them. We don't take the calves off anymore. We feel like any cow with its weight, she ought to be able to take the calf in the winter time. But she's got to be fat. We'll talk about that later. We got to make sure the cow's in the right condition. There's a fresh trampled litter bank that we trampled on the ground. That's going to feed a lot of soil critters. When you come back to that paddock in about 45 to 60 days, that's in the springtime, you're probably not going to find much of that. It's going to be gone. Where did it go? Earthworms and the soil microbes that eat that stuff. And you can go, I've got pictures of it, you'll see it in a minute. It's amazing what happens when you start feeding the soil life. You know, if you will adopt this mentality that your farm is like a spider web, for every soil critter or anything that you can draw onto your farm, each species supports 8 additional ones. Each species that you make a home for on your farm supports 8. That'll get pretty excited when you hear that, folks. 8 additional species? Think of your farm as a spider web. By the way, spider webs, you see them all over your pastures, pat yourself on the back. You're doing something pretty neat. And spiders are the biggest predators in a pasture. There's a lot of spiders. You've got a lot of life in your soil. That's good. This is an area of creating open savannas. This is a hunter. This is another farm we have. It's owned by a deer hunter. That's all he cares about is deer hunting. And all it was brush and just a choked up, nasty fescue. It didn't have any clovers in it. There was nothing there to draw deer in there. He never saw any deer. So I got a 10-year lease on this farm, free. I don't pay him anything. And we do that. We bring the mob in and we lock them up tight in the bush for 12 hours, or 2 hours, or 3 hours, overnight. You can lock them in there overnight. They don't need water. And they trample that, and they eat everything as high as they can reach. You see that grapevine process. They've killed all the little trees. These are the big ones that survive. And now, I only go in there about 3 times a year. And it's a wildlife haven down there. The guy, his brother, see monster bucks in there now. Turkey. They get a turkey. There's a resident flock of turkeys that live in there now. And it's all because of our grazing management. We didn't go buy the turkey. We didn't go buy the deer. They came. Folks, a lot of people buy land in our area just to hunt on. Hunting is a big deal. You know, people want a big brag. Guys want to brag about killing a big buck. Well, if I can help them, they can help me. So it's a trading deal. I'm getting to graze my cattle using good management, and they're getting to shoot at a big buck. It's a pretty good trade. This is an area on our farm right below the house that's never been grazed. And Ian, you know, guy from Africa, gives me one free day every year. And he saw this. We went down the hill, our Kubota like deal, and he's looking at that. He goes, "What's that?" I'm like, "Well, that's my wildlife habitat." And he very bluntly goes, "Why are you doing something stupid like that?" In other words, I had a hot wire on there. I wasn't letting the cows in there. I said, "Well, Ian, I don't want the cows in there. They're going to destroy my wildlife habitat." And he goes, "Well, there's no wildlife in there. It's a sterile environment." He said, "You won't have any wildlife until you put cattle in there. There's a creek in there." I'm like, "Well, I don't want them in the creek." He said, "Everything in Africa is booger. Just, booger it. Booger it? Yeah, just do it." We did. We tore the fence out and put the cattle in, and this is what it looked like. That was after one night. They ripped and tore all the understory down, trampled it on the ground, and now the creek is starting to heal. The creek banks are falling off. Did you know a cow, when they go to the creek bank, they don't really care where they cross, they just bulldoze off of it. But they're only in there for 12 hours, 8 to 12 hours. They're not in there for days. I'll show you some pictures of our livestock at Dung are repairing Dung. Folks, cows will destroy rivers and creeks and waterways. They will, if you leave them there. But they will heal if we just pulse graze it, get it, and get off of it. It's amazing what happens to riparian zones. The water's clear, we've got fish in our creeks now, frogs, and it's growing right down to the edge of the water. It's unbelievable. But I've seen it where it's been the other way. This is our cows headed to work. We do not move our cattle with trailers. We are fortunate we live in an area that's still rural enough, country enough, that we are able to walk our miles from farm to farm. All of our farms are within 5 miles, and because I am a full-time rancher now, we pick out, say, 9:30 in the morning. Everybody's in town at work, and we do our cattle drive. And the furthest from one end to the other is probably about 4 miles. But what we do is we'll go like a mile and a half to this farm, maybe a mile to that one, half a mile to that one. So we're always moving. We're always moving to the next farm. This is an area that we really beat up. This is a lease farm. And sometime in the past, somebody had some clover there, I think. Wouldn't you think? We didn't plant that. That just came up. So we beat it up in the spring, and we came back, and that's what it looked like after 60 days. I couldn't believe it. I thought somebody snuck in there and planted some clover seeds. Pretty awesome. I don't care if the cows eat every bite of it. I don't want them to eat every bite of grass, but I do like them to step on the soil. If you look at the hoof as a tool, and you step on the soil, you're bruising it. The microbes that are living on the root hairs of your plants, these little bitty animals that we can't see, that are living on the root hairs, and that animal steps on that ground and bruises it, it wakes them all up. And they go, "Ah!" And they all start eating and feeding and forcing food back and forth, and you have this explosion of growth. You don't believe me? Go and look at a pasture that's been grazed, and then look at one right next to it that's been mowed off by a machine. Tell me which one has the most life. Which one's growing back the fastest? Folks, hayfields look like a desert in comparison to pasture. There's just nothing out there. Once you take that hay off, you've exposed that sunlight to the ground. It's like a desert, and it takes several weeks to get that thing back functioning again. Grazing? No. 2 or 3 days, you start to see regrowth. You see critters booking around. You've got this nice litter bank. I'm going to show you what a litter bank is. A litter bank is anything that is organic. It can be the stem off of a plant. It can be a grass blade, leaves, sticks, anything that's decomposing. That's your litter bank. Even dead limbs off of trees. You know, I used to cut and burn any tree that fell down on the farm. I'd cut it and burn it. Throw it in the pile and burn it because it looked bad. Well, now I chop it up in 2 or 3 foot pieces and I leave it like where it's at. That tree is organic. It's feeding soil. And if I throw it in the fire and burn it, what have I done to my soil life? Nothing. Probably killed some right where I burned it. So I took all that carbon that took maybe 30, 40 years to grow, and I just burned it, put it up in the atmosphere. Didn't make any money doing that. It's all about, we got to make some money. Do cattle destroy riparian zones? We talked a little bit about that. Is that what destroyed? Folks, we ran 250 head of cattle across that creek, starting up here. There's the fence. Single wire, high tensile. We strip grazed it with a piece of pine wire across that creek for 2 years. And they broke the banks down. Now there's grass growing right down to the edge of the water. Before there wasn't any water in there. Every time it rained, these dirt banks would fall off in that creek, and then it would be dry in a couple of days. Well, once we started trapping all the water up on the sides of these hills by all this litter, we trampled this on the ground, so we're holding this up on the sides of these hills. Our water doesn't run off the farm anymore. We're holding it in place. Folks, it doesn't matter how much water you get if you don't keep it on your farm. Our farm should be like big cushions. Great big cushions. If it falls on there, let's catch it. One thing I want you to look in there, do you all see one species to plant? Nope. Diversity. Diversity, that's what nature's about, is diversity. You've got brown leaves, you've got long pointed leaves, you've got weeds, you've got grasses, sedges, lagoons, there's even some willows. That's diversity. You know, I drive by a field and there's only one crop out there. It's just like, oh, gives me cold chill. It does, because that is a problem. That's an open invitation to a pest. Come in there and jump on that dude and just tear it up. Where you've got diversity, you've got multiple different species of plants on your farm, you're catching solar energy at different levels. And you're also, if you've got a pest that, say, likes corn, you've only got a couple of corn plants in there and all the rest of the different species, he's not going to like you out. Okay? There's a big push going on in the United States to kill fescue. Kentucky 31, end of fight infected fescue. Government will pay you 90% to kill it. Spray your farm with Roundup, kill everything in there, put a small grain in that first summer, and then spray it again in the fall to make sure you get all of it. And then go in and put in end of fight novel fescue. It's a novel, which is a friendly end of fight. It doesn't affect cattle. See, the end of fight, what it does is it restricts the blood flow to the extremities of the animal. It's a very persistent fescue. It's all over the Midwest. We can't get rid of it. Can't. You can kill it if you want, but it'll be back in 5 years or less. The government's the one that brought it in, and now they're trying to kill it. the friendly end of fight fescue is the bugs just love it. Army worms come in and just wipe it out. And so some of the farmers are listening and planting their whole farm just not going to fight fescue. And one season, the army worms come in and take the whole stand out. So it's just like, it just doesn't make sense. So we've got it. It's our primary grass on our farm. You'll see in a minute the condition on the cows. We get rid of the cows that can't take Kentucky 31. Just get rid of them. Sell them. The other 99% are doing fine on it. It's that 1%. They can't handle it, so get rid of them. Don't kill your farm. I mean, there's no money in killing your farm. Why do you want to kill your soil for? Who's making the money on this deal? We need to look where that money's going out of your pocket to. Those are the people that are benefiting, not you. Multi-species. So we're running different species out here. We talked about the different species of grasses. We also need more different species on our farm. Everybody told us we couldn't run hogs with the sheep because that hog will eat that baby lamb. If that hog takes one more step toward that baby lamb, it's going to incur the whole wrath of that 130-pound beast right in its head. You're going to hear a huge squeal. Plus, I've never seen a hog that can catch a baby lamb. We ran the hogs and the cattle together. Our neighbors thought we were completely nuts. They already think we're nuts, and then they saw the hogs and not the cattle. They knew we were nuts. But those hogs enjoy the cows. The cows don't need the hogs. They couldn't care less about those hogs. But the hogs like the cows. They kind of need a cow. Especially when it's hot. When it's hot, a hog doesn't sweat, and so they use the cow pats to roll in. They'll roll in those darn things, and they come up to their face. You can't see anything but their eyes. Everything's green. Just solid green. They come in, how do you do it? They're the most friendly animal on the farm, which is covered in cow manure, except for their eyes. They are the smartest animal on the farm because Jan's watched them do this. I have on occasion where they run out of cow pats and they go bump a cow. And when they bump the cow gets up. What's the cow do when it gets up? The pig has a new home. They are smart animals. We do allow our cows to drink out of the ponds now. This is something that Ian really got us to doing. It's amazing. Somebody can come onto your farm and see things that you're not doing, and they'll ask you, why are you doing that? We do have tanks. I'll show you some of them in a minute. I like the tanks. But the cows aren't hurting that pond. That's because we're not letting them in it. So the old polywater is fired up with, it's got about 8,000 volts in it. It goes all the way around this pond. Okay? So they got to stand on the bank and drink under the polywater. They're not in the pond. I don't want a cow pooping and peeing in my pond. You wonder why you got health issues. Darn it, a cow's 70% water. If you're making her drink brackish water. If you don't make a rule, you wouldn't make a cow drink something you wouldn't drink. You won't have very many health issues. Okay? Good clean water, good stuff. I like to fish. I'm an avid fisherman. So I'm not going to go fishing in the pond the cows and use it as a swim pool. It's got poop and pee all over. I'm not going to do it. But you'll notice the dam. Look at the dam right there. That used to be a salt stand of fescue. It was choked out by brush. Because we had it fenced off. We didn't let the cows to the pond. And now, it's about 50-60% lagoon. Beautiful forage up on that dam. It's because it's a high traffic zone. It's getting a lot of traffic on it. Okay? The more traffic you can get on there, you're going to have some plovers, maybe some bird's foots, and less cadizas and alfalfa, different lagoons coming up in there. This is a new one. This is called Eastern Gama Grass. It covered the prairie all across Kansas, Missouri, put it out in Colorado. It's down in Mississippi. It is the ice cream grass and grass. That's what they call it. It's a member of the corn family. It's so sweet that if you allow cows to graze it continuously, they'll kill it. I'm betting you can grow it in Canada. You may even have it in Canada. I just found out you do. That you all do have big blues. That's a really good one. But anyway, that just came. We didn't plant that. It just appeared. Well, Greg, where did that seed come from? My answer to that is it was there. It's probably later than 100 years. This farm it came up on was continuously grazed for the last 70 years. Continuously grazed means it had a fence around it, and they let the cattle graze it all year round. So it never got a good recovery period. It never really got a good beating of mob stock density. Okay? We'll talk about that one. Here's some of our big blue stem. This is early in the season. It's just a wonderful grass. Folks, I think when you start seeing some of these native warm season grasses appear on your farms, that should be a red flag to you that you're doing things great. In other words, you're giving your grasses enough time to express themselves. Okay? If you're coming back too soon, you're never going to see a big blue stem, ever. You've got to give it a full recovery period between grazing. We didn't ever see any big blue while we were doing typical rotational grazing. See, we were kind of the professionals at MIT for 14 years. We were good at it. We went around our farm twice in the spring. We went around all our farms twice, making sure that we kept them 4 inches tall. 4 inches. So we keep the seed heads off. And our cattle did all right. We were raising stalkers at that time, young animals. And the stalkers did great on this short grass. Guess what happened in July? What happens in July in Missouri? Every year, we don't get rain. It gets hot, it gets dry. And that 4-inch grass dried up. We were forced to get rid of the cattle every year. Thank goodness we were custom raisers. We could call the land and the cattle would come and get them. It always bothered me. I'm like, what would I do if I owned these cattle? I'd have to, what, feed hay or sell them. It just didn't make sense. Grazing a short plant. But the animals did great on it. Except for in July, it dried up and then it wilted and it fell on the ground and grasshoppers ate it. Why do we have so many grasshoppers? Because we had a lot of bare soil. Grasshoppers breed in bare soil. If you can keep the bare soil off your farm, you won't have years of grasshoppers. Okay? It was like a plague. You could walk through Judy farms in July. It was just a plague. I wished I had 10,000 turkeys. I could have fed them well. It's all the grasshoppers. Those are distant memories now. We don't have that happening. Because we're not keeping our plants short and vegetative. Dung beetles. Starting to see a lot of dung beetles. These are the little beetles that eat the dung. They roll it up in little round balls. Why are dung beetles important? Well, we talk about energy. The energy cycle, we want that to be fast so we get those manure piles back in the soil. There's nothing faster than dung beetles doing that. They roll that manure up in little balls, and bury a hole, and in that little hole will be a dung beetle larvae, baby dung beetle. And that's what he lives on when he's hatched, is that dung. He crawls out a hole inside with some people. What if he had thousands of those boogers that made a hole like that? That's the size of a nickel, folks. A nickel. The diameter is a nickel. I stuck a stick down and it went down 2 foot. Okay, now we've got, say, 20,000 of those on our farms. What happens in the rain? And the fly larvae, I haven't covered that. The fly larvae in that manure path, it can't survive. See, the maggots, that's what they are, the flying maggots, they come in about the third day. Once that cat hits the ground, it takes about 3 days. The flies land on it, they lay their eggs, and then we have maggots that hatch into flies that attack the cows. We have a really bad fly problem in Central Missouri. You'll have 1,000 flies on a cow. 1,000. It only takes 500 flies per cow to suck out 3 gallons of blood. Would you feel like putting on weight if you get 3 gallons of blood sucked out of you every day? And we wonder why dung beetles are important? We don't have them anymore. Why don't we have the dung beetle anymore? I don't know. We've killed them all. We've killed them. They're gone. But there's still some surviving, and they're coming back. If you will start taking care of your cow past, but not before your cattle. Yeah, we haven't worked an animal in probably 20 years. If we have an animal that looks like it's wormy, sell it. Why don't the other 99 wormy? That one cow, for whatever her reason is, she won't clean up, her tail's all nasty and muddy with manure, she's thin, get rid of her. If you move a cow under fresh grass every day or two, and she's still thin, and she won't put on weight, there's something wrong. Probably got it. She doesn't have any resistance. Why? I don't know. But I'm not going to compromise my whole herd. Worming them just to get rid of one, make her not wormy, no way. You're not making any money that way. You're killing soil life. You're placing a crutch under your whole herd. They don't have to build up any resistance because you're putting wormer down the back twice a month. I mean, if you took an antibiotic shot every time you have a sniffle, and you really got sick and you took an antibiotic, it's not going to do it. It's because you're immune to antibiotics. Same way on cow. Get rid of the cow. Don't worry. This is a new strip, ready for the mob. Okay? Manifold oil through it so the cows can see the wire. That's what it looks like before we turn it in. That's what it looked like 12 hours later. So we put them in there at 100,000 pounds. Now what's 100,000 pounds? That means if I had 100 cows that weighed 1,000 pounds each, I put them on 1 acre. 1 acre for 12 hours. Okay? Don't get too focused on these numbers. Starting out, I did, and it kind of cost me. I got so focused on this density that I was trying to reach, 500,000 pounds. There's people in the United States that, some of them are up to 1.5 million. Neil Dennis up in Canada, he does 2 million. That's fine. But you don't have to go to those extreme densities. If you do, you're going to have to move them a lot. And I don't recommend you do that starting out. There's too much pressure on you. There's too much stress on the animals and you. Don't do that. Starting out, you don't need that pressure. You don't need stress in your life. You got enough stress. Don't stress your animal. This is the trample feed. You can do some pretty neat things at 100,000 pounds. 5 breathing animals. We can't limit the performance. We'll talk about that in another talk today. There it is. There's the microbe feed. They didn't eat that. They trampled it. Look what happened 4 weeks later. So this young man that's holding that grass up, it's down there now. See it? All this stuff is new. This is all coming up through that. This is all the dead stuff. Now, 4 weeks later, look at that. Can you imagine how much carbon I put down there? Carbon being litter, green material, feeding the soil. Millions and millions and millions of microbes are having a food festival. That was in October, folks. I'm sorry, August. August. Dry month in Missouri. Look how moist that soil is. The earthworms are literally on right underneath that litter eating the new food supply that I gave. That's called the litter bank. That's the litter bank. There's new seedlings busting up through the litter. People ask me, well, how fast do we move our cows? Or what do you think this graze looks like? And I'm like, let's go look at the manure. I'm a manure freak. I am. I love looking at manure. I even run my finger down through the sniff. I haven't ate it yet. I don't think I have to go that far. But it should look like that. If it's got this nice little pond in the middle, that's a plus. Okay? I like to have the wrinkles of the manure pad on the sides. And it should have the consistency of pumpkin pie. Okay? You take your foot and reach down there on a fresh one, you pull it open, and you see a lot of juice. It's got too much water in it. The cow's probably getting too much protein. You're making her graze too far ahead. You're making her take too much of the corn. Okay? Getting too much protein, not enough energy. This cow's perfect. She's getting just the right amount of protein, just the right amount of energy, and it's stacked up about 2 inches, inch and a half to 2 inches. Okay? That cow's putting on weight. Her calf is getting fat. Her calf's not going to get big. Her calf is going to make you some money, and she's going to recruit. What's the highest cost in the cow-calf business? An open cow. Today's market in the United States, you're going to get $2,500 to $3,000 for a bred cow. If you have to sell her as an open cow, you're going to get about $1,200. How many of y'all want to take that hit? I don't. You don't want to take that hit. Especially on 30, 40% of your herd. Now we're talking serious money. We got to get our cows rebred. That's what we're going to talk about here today. We're going to talk about making sure we get our cows rebred. Great way talking about that. Well, what's a cow eat? Y'all know a cow's not a granivore? It's a herbivore. They're designed to eat forages and grasses. We've got something pretty good on it. This is called black gold. This is about a 2-inch tall mountain of earthworm poop. Earthworm poop. All those little tiny little crustaceans there you see, the poop, the turtle. And that worm, he sat there and chewed on all that mess and just made a big old pile of poop. What it is, you can pull that back anywhere on our farm, and you're going to find our ground is completely covered with earthworm castings. Earthworm castings. I don't care where you go on our farm, just pull it back and you're going to go, what's all these little turds there? It's earthworm poop. I'm going to go into that more later. That's how we put up our daily paddings. This is an intern. We have girls and boys. We've had both, and they're both great. Young people that want to learn how to do this. We've got an internship program we may talk about later a little bit. But anyway, I don't like holding on to anything in my hand while putting out paddings. We can put out, folks, I worked 40 hours a week in town. I moved 3 groups twice a day, 7 days a week. And I did it. It wasn't fun, but I did it. It had been a lot funner if I'd had one mom. And Ian's the one that woke me up to that. He came and saw what I was doing, and he said, Greg, what you do is not sustainable. I'm like, what do you mean it's not sustainable? Well, he said, you're working 40 hours a week in town. You're moving 3 herds twice a day. He said, 3 things are going to happen to you, young man. I'm like, what's that? You're either going to burn out, or your wife is going to divorce you, or you're going to drop dead. Those 3 sounded pretty entertaining to me. He says, you've got to stop. I'm like, but Ian, you saw what I'm doing. Look what's happening. He said, yeah. He said, the cattle look good, the land looks good, but what you're doing is not sustainable. You've got to put those herds together. I'm like, well, you saw the farms are laid out over there. There's one over there. If I put them all on that farm, I'm going to run out of grass. I'm going to have to truck up to that farm. And I have to truck them. Well, he said, the last time I checked, they had 4 legs. Make them walk. And he said, put an ad in the Columbia Tribune newspaper and tell them you're going to have a nice beef roast, campfire and music, and charge them $250 a day to come out. The local county. They can bring their horse. We haven't done that. I bet you people wouldn't do it. Because people want to get outside of the country and have the experience. And where else are you going to go for a cattle? There's the eastern Gama Grass. It is a very, very palatable, high production grass. The neat thing about these warm seasons, folks, is when it gets hot and dry, you're not going to be out of grass. Now, I'm not saying your whole farm should be covered with this. It should. Maybe 20, 25%, or 15%. Just have a clump of it, or one section of your farm, or have clumps of it throughout your farm, right with your wedge. But you don't want your whole farm covered in this because it's not very good feed for winter. It doesn't stop farm. Healthy soil means healthy animals. We do from conception all the way to harvest. That steer's going to weigh about 1,200 pounds. He's never had anything but grass his whole life. And it's a pleasant eating experience. Every animal that James sells, we hang them, our local arbitor, and we eat one. We eat a rib out of every one. It's a tough job. And if it's tough, we don't sell it as a cut-up beef. It's hamburger. We grind it. Don't sell a customer a tough animal. You can't tell until you use it. Well, you can, but it's expensive. You got to use ultrasound, and we don't do that. But we do cut a ribeye out right there, and I grill it. And if it's tender, it's a good animal. We sell it. I think a lot of us are getting our animals to the arbiter too soon, maybe. I know in the United States we are. There's a lot of people that are focused on lean beef. I don't want it. I want some fat. I want some grass fat. That's where the health benefits are. That's where the taste is. If you don't have any fat on that animal and you grill it, by the time you get done grilling it, it's going to be probably a pretty dry piece of meat. Might even taste like a shoe sole. Don't overcook it. Folks, we got to give our animals the right size. We can't do grass-fed beef in the United States on animals that have legs that long. Now the feedlots, they'll take them. They like those animals because they can eat a lot of corn. A lot of corn before they get fat, and that's what they want. Most of the feedlots in the United States, that's what they're in the process of doing, is they sell corn. They don't sell meat. They sell corn. Okay? And the more corn they can feed your cow, the more money they make. So they want one that'll finish at, say, 1,600 pounds, because they can feed that lot of corn. Unfortunately for us on the farm, we've got to get that 1,600 pound cow per head up. Not on grass. You're going to have a very low conception rate. You're going to have a very high maintenance cow going through the winter. Folks, it comes down to this. The more square inches of surface area that you have exposed to your natural environment, the higher maintenance that you're going to need. Did y'all get that? The more surface square inches, I don't care if it's a sheep, a goat, or a cow, the more surface square inches that you have exposed to your natural environment, the more feed that animal is going to require. Okay? We should talk about making money. If I can run a lot more cows because they're 1,000 to 1,200 pounds, I'm going to get more calves. Why wouldn't I want to do it? And they're going to be easier to breed back. So here's another huge one. Folks, we've had 10 and a quarter, let me back up, we've had 8 and a quarter inches so far in October in Missouri. The neighbors that have these big cows, the pastures look like hay lots. Those big old cows just tore that heck out of the pasture. They're heavy. Our little 1,000-pound cows. We're moving them. There's no pugging hardly. I had one at that guy's house that had 50 years, 55 years, no cows on it. We had him in his yard. They didn't care because we got him out there. But if you had those 1,800, 1,600-pound cows there, it'll look like you took a plow and went through his farm. I mean, they'll tear up the farm. I raised them, I know. So why would you want to have a huge cow when it's raining if you can have 1,000 to 1,200-pound cow? She's not going to tell you pastures up. And I don't know what I did. Somehow it went back to the floor. Let me see if I can find that. Where's the mouse?
Just beside you. Great. Mouse is just on the side.
Oh, I'm used to.
Just scroll down on
Slideshow.
just slide on that. Yeah, that.
Oops. I think I can just go from current slide. I'm close to where I need to be. There.
Download button. There you go.
From current slide. There we go. I don't know how I did that, but I did. There's another mob move. We're actually taking the cows down the gravel road. Yes, those are soybeans. Right over here. And all that is the polybar that is not energized. But our cows are broke. I mean, it's unbelievable. They will not go through that because they know they're going to get their butt shot. Building topsoil, it all starts in the soil. Healthy soil means we're going to have healthy livestock. When you dig out a handful of your soil, look at it. Does it look like it's crumbly in your hands? Hopefully you'll have some worms in there. That's a sure sign of healthy carbon-rich soil. If it's real compact and stuck together, there's not much going on in that soil. You need to feed it with more carbon, more litter, get some more stuff on the ground. Every grass blade that you can trample on the ground gives you 2 back. If you put $1 in the bank today, do you get $1 back in your life? Nope. So why would you want to do that? If you're going to get a grass blade back for everyone trampling, we need to think about that, folks. Don't think of it as waste. It's not wasted. It's a savings account. You're going to draw a little bit of interest on that later in the form of more grass, more cattle. We've doubled our stocking rate in 7 years on Judy farm. We've doubled that. We're down to 2 acres. We were at 4 acres per cow for the year. Now we're at 2. Actually 1.8. What's that equal to? It's the same thing as somebody giving Jan and I a free farm. It's the same thing. Land's expensive. I think it's probably pretty pricey up here in Canada too. We've got to be able to make it more productive. Litter brings life to the soil. There's a fresh litter bank. It all starts with the litter. Litter is slowly consumed. It's not like chemical nitrogen or this anhydrous that they spray on corn. It's not the same thing. It's not nuking the soil life. This is slow. The litter is being consumed slowly. Nature doesn't work boom like that. It doesn't work that way. We need more humus in the soil. Without soil, all the activity stops for microbes. It has a 90% evaporation rate. We did a study this year in Missouri. It was like 100. See, it was 104 that day. And there was a guy that was continuous grazing on this side of the fence, and 30 feet away was a guy that was doing mob grazing, where he had like 6 to 8 inches of residual wet. And they put a surface thermometer on that continuous graze pasture, and they used the same thermometer over here. On the continuous graze pasture, it's like 109 degrees, the surface temperature. Went over here and it was 80. 80! It's like this great big blanket of insulation on that guy's farm. The soil wasn't hot. In other words, his wife was still working adequately, growing more grass, because he had good litter, and he didn't graze the plants down too short. Picture's kind of weird. You hold your head like this. Okay? Everybody hold your head like this. That's a culvert coming out of the road. This guy's farming. He just put a soybean crop in. This is our grass right here, coming out of our, we've got a 50-acre field right up in this corner. It all feeds into the same creek. Can y'all tell a little difference there in the color of that water? He's losing his topsoil. It's leaving. It's down in the Mississippi Delta now. It's gone. Where's our topsoil at? It's still there. It's upping. John on the soil uppens, comes up. 5 years of grid, we've grown our topsoil 5 inches in 5 years. Yep. The control's right across the fence. Guy, we sold I had a cabin that I built. I used his side as a control. Continuous grazing. That's what he's doing. We've got 5 inches deeper than his. That's pretty. But that's because we're focused on feeding this one.
2 minutes, Rick.
2 minutes? Okay. There we go. One manure pile. There's 462 earthworms in there. We counted them. 462 in one manure pad. This is in March. Look at that. One worm can produce 1.2 million worms in its 7-year lifespan. What's 462 times 1.2 million? Y'all getting excited yet? That's a lot of life, folks. That's a lot of life. There we go. 1 ton of worms per acre. If you get up to 25 worms, that's 1 ton of worms or 100 tons of castings per acre per year. How many of y'all have priced a ton of earthworm castings lately? Now we're talking wealth. I'm talking real wealth. You're not wealthy unless your soil is yielding. Because you're going to have to buy something every year to make it grow. You don't want to do that. You can't make any money buying stuff. pH of a casting is 7. It's perfect. So I've got, a million little lime spreaders spreading lime every day, creeping out these. I'm excited. How do we get the litter? We talked about that. You got to bend it over, trample it on the ground. If it's vegetative, you can't bend it over because it springs back up. You got to get the plant mature. Get it taller, and then it'll stay down. We don't burn anymore. Burning just kills life in the soil. There's our spider web. There's harvesting solar energy in Africa. Ian's got those all over his farm now. Those are warthogs. He gets $2,500 from them. That's pretty good money. They just came onto his ranch. This is a herd of cattle that we bought in from the United States from Mexico. It's a closed herd of heifers. And that animal lives on rocks. There's no grass out there. Everything there's got a thorn on it. But look at that animal. So that rancher selected animals like the perform in that environment for 60 years. And that's what he ended up. Form follows function. The function of an animal is to perform in the environment in which it is born. If it doesn't function, get rid of it. There's the Aleutian cattle on Aleutian Island, same deal. Mother Nature kills off 25% of those every winter. Only the fittest animals survive. Mother Nature's cruel. She doesn't pour out the neck down the back. She just kills it. Okay? That's an Judy. That's in Africa. That's the native breed that Ian's using, his son. And there's the elephant that we saw in the park. He's harvesting energy. And there's a bad customer right there. He's just mad all the time. That's our website. And I think I'm done. We'll take a break. Thank you all.